Is the sunny side that we don't have to worry about that until next year, and a lot could happen between now and then?
I think it's going to be more of a next year phenomena, but I think the important issue is, what is the Fed's goal here? The Fed's goal is to hammer demand, to bring it down to what it sees as a supply-constrained world. And that's a very hard thing to do. And even though we're only talking about a small increase in unemployment, I think it will be a recession, a shallow recession. That shift from 4.3 million, over 4.3 million jobs year to date, relative to almost double the pace of the 2010s, that helped to keep consumer spending buoyed, along with that savings amassed. Much of the savings that we had amassed during the pandemic is now concentrated only in the highest income households. The lowest income households ran out of it by the end of the second quarter, and that's what you're hearing from the differences as you disaggregate the data. It matters where it sits, as well as what happens to the number of paychecks that have really provided support for the U.S. economy and made it resilient. That very resilience is also what the Federal Reserve is worried about in sustaining inflation and putting a floor on how low inflation can go.
Diane, I was struck by how much stronger than projections consumer spending was for Black Friday and Cyber Week. I think the predictions were for something about flat, but it was actually up considerably. But then at the same time, I wonder, does that continue throughout the rest of the quarter? And how much discounting is necessary to achieve that in order to move the inventory? How important is that setup for what happens in Q1 and what we have to look forward to as far as the consumer and the job situation, which affects the consumer heading into 23?
So first of all, the Black Friday sales were good, but after adjusting for inflation, not as good. And that is even with the deep discounting. What's been really interesting in watching the credit card data is how sensitive consumers have been to discounting. They are now very much more cost conscious on average, and that is important. We had a lot of early discounting in October, which pulled a lot of spending forward, and then credit card receipts slowed down dramatically until we got to those Black Friday sales, which actually came back this year. Remember, they weren't really discounts a year ago. So that's really important, is that the sensitivity we're seeing. The good news for the consumer through the end of the year is we got a little extra boost in energy prices coming down and finally prices at the pump coming down. So that will help buoy consumer spending. But as we get into next year, the issue for the Fed is, can they cool inflation enough to not have it metastasize and become a much more fatal condition? And the reality is they feel they need to raise rates a lot more in order to do that. I think they're going to stick to 0.5% at their next meeting, but the end point on rates, likely 5.5%. That's much higher than they were even a few months ago in their own projections. And we think that's enough to derail the employment growth. And once you take away all those new paychecks in the economy, it is a lot harder to sustain consumer spending.
Do they have to go this route, Diane? I mean, I take Scott Kirby's point that out in the real world, there's not a lot of recession talk right now, but you can't ignore the message that markets are sending with these inversions and so on. Should the Fed be heeding that message and pursue a strategy that's a lot less hawkish right now?
Well, remember, the Federal Reserve, first of all, Powell is a student of history. History has taught us over and over again, they won't repeat the mistakes of history, that if they don't go far enough on inflation and derail it now, it could metastasize. And he was really clear in his comments, his written comments, which were much more hawkish than his Q&A. In his written comments, he was very clear in his last speech about where the underlying inflation resides, in the service sector outside of shelter costs. A lot of things are coming down, and that's great news, but it's not enough to stop inflation from metastasizing. And that's what the Federal Reserve is dealing with. And if they do not stop it now, that risks a much more severe kind of recession like we saw in the early 1980s. They don't want to go there. They would rather have a rise in the unemployment rate today and slow the economy. I think it will tip into a recession. It's kind of splitting hairs at this point in time. They think it's 50-50 between what they call a soft landing, which is a rise in the unemployment rate, and a sharp slowdown and an actual contraction in growth. But at the end of the day, they want to get rid of that, because if they don't, you risk the kinds of problems. This is a global in scope problem that you had from a 2 decades long series of mistakes, policy mistakes, including the Federal Reserve not going far enough.